The community's also expressed here a great desire to see downtown made more convenient and cohesive. And we think that there's an easy way to accomplish this by just taking a few simple steps. One is through connectivity, and there's a greater connectivity we think there should be given, or should be created, if you will, between Morrows Meadow and Lions Club Park. And you know, you don't even know Lions Club Park is there if you don't know it's there. I mean, there's really no reason why one would wander off to that unless, you know, you wanted to play frisbee golf or, you know, you lived here. But that's a great asset that you're not taking maximum advantage of. So we think a good way to do that is to kill a bunch of birds with one stone. And we think the current connection between these parks should be through the following. We think the way you should connect these parks is through the following. The current connection between Morrows Meadow and Smith, which is the Broadway, should be maintained. Okay, that's the one you have to go down. If you're in a wheelchair, God help you. You're going to be going 90 miles an hour by the time you get to the bottom, but that's used. And we think Morrows Meadow and Lions Club Park should be connected, specifically connected by creating a walking as well as bike trail that runs along Adeline or along the creek. We couldn't, when we were here, we couldn't get, we tried not to trespass anybody's property, but we couldn't get into that area enough on foot at the time we were here to get a good clean line of sight of where that connection would be, but it should come somewhere behind likely the bank there along the edge of the creek. But the trail and walking and bike trail should go from Lions Club Park along the creek or Adeline, and then along Smith up to Broadway, and then north on Broadway to the Meadow. In other words, keep the existing connection that you've got. We're going to suggest a second connection, and one that would continue on. Remember, if you follow with me, you're coming up from the creek. You can go in the opposite direction too when I finish describing where it would be. You can come up across the bridge up the hill to Broadway with your bike or walking. Take the left. It should all be well marked as well. Take the left and go down to the existing passageway. And we think the second thing that you should do to really maximize the advantages that you've got is to continue down Smith with that bike walk path. That'll force one to go through the center of your downtown, and then make a sharp left on Market Street and go straight into the park. Okay? With a new, this passageway, bridge it will likely be, should be handicap accessible. Okay, so you'll have one that is and one that isn't handicap accessible. Rather than trying to retrofit to what you've got, again, the killing two birds is we'll have two entrances and exits to that park. And an open vista should be created at Canal and Market, which allows Morrows Meadow to be visible from Smith and from Market. Again, walk and bike path. When you get this document, there's a graphic here that describes where that should go. But we think that's something that could really enhance the usability of those two parks. It would definitely connect your downtown in a more pronounced way to those parks. Wayfinding. We know the town today is planning a wayfinding system, sign system that would include downtown. Now, if you don't know what wayfinding is, if you go to Indianapolis, I think Muncie has this as well. But a wayfinding system is a system that helps you find your way through signage. And a program is already designed here. I'm not sure what the status of it is. I know we worked with you tweaking the design of it just a little bit, but
we've got one up, Doyle.
You got one up?
One up.
Where is it?
It's at Tiger and River Road.
Okay. Make sure you take a look at that because you'll understand much better what I'm talking about. Is it the new design?
It is the new design.
Great.
Although we're still evaluating.
Still evaluating?
Yes.
Okay. Just make sure that font's big enough so one can read it. But we think you ought to implement that as soon as possible. And these signs will be strategically located around the community that will lead you to downtown, lead you to the library, lead you to other points of interest in the community. That's what wayfinding does. But it really helps not just visitors, but locals as well. Bikes. We think the town is, we know the town has added bike racks to downtown as a part of the streetscape project. Now we think you ought to give consideration to making downtown even more bike friendly, not just that bike walk trail that I mentioned to you, but we think that the contemporary way today, even in New York City they do it this way, is to put basically their decals on the street that let you share the road with bikes and cars. And this not only emphasizes the fact that you're a bike-friendly town, but it slows traffic down. It's a traffic calming technique as well. And God knows you need to slow the traffic down as much as you can on Smith to the degree that you can without having to get write a lot of speeding tickets. But the designation of a bike lane, I can tell you, will help, and that should be consistent with the placement and location of the bike walk trail that I mentioned to you previously. Now, like I said before, it doesn't really appear that you have a parking problem today. In fact, many people would say that should be a goal of this program, to have a parking problem. Over time, that means you've got more cattle than you've got hat to put it in. We would like to see that. But we think that the timing of this should be based on demand. We think the current parking that you've got is also more difficult to find than it should be. So we want to make sure that every public parking facility here be marked and have a sign that says free parking, public parking, and emphasize the word free. There's a sign out there today, a green sign that says public parking. I don't remember that sign. People, the highway just put that up. Highway department.
We put that up. We put that up after you left.
I know, I saw it tonight. I hadn't seen it before. Well, that's a good start. But then follow that sign, and if you aren't from here, tell me where I should park, because your parking lots aren't marked. So the parking lots ought to be marked just like the street. Tell me that there's parking there. I'd encourage you to use the word free, but you need parking like that, because you know where the parking is that's free, but I don't if I'm not from here. And I guarantee you a lot of local people probably don't know it as well. But it should be clearly marked, directional signs to the parking, and then when you get to the parking lot, to emphasize that is public parking. When you do create another public parking lot, and again, hopefully it won't be too long until the demand will be there, but when you do, we suggest that you not put any more parking that enters and exits off of Smith. What that does is it breaks up the street wall, and it breaks up pedestrian movement. It's like, might as well be the wall of China, that people just don't want to walk past dead spaces. They'll get in their car and drive to Walmart or the mall. So we want to make that as pedestrian friendly as possible and not have any blank walls. So we suggest that you not put any more parking that faces Smith. But in the future, you want the parking as close to Smith as you possibly can get it. And ideally, this would be located on the south side of Smith. The parking lot that you have today, the one I was referring to that's not marked, is on the north side of Smith. A comparable lot should be developed on the south side of Smith. We don't designate where, because that means the property values go up immediately when we do that. But just that within the pedestrian zone, the south side, not facing Smith, would be a great place for a second parking lot in the future when demand warrants it. Now, there are going to be some larger projects that we think you need to do too. Mostly everything I've mentioned at this point in time. It's not that you can do them tomorrow, but they're things that are very manageable, affordable in your case, and reasonable, I think, from a market perspective. But we need to take some pretty forceful action to take care of some of the problems that you've got here that we classified as larger. One in particular, what I'm going to call problematic properties. Now, in any downtown, it's a well-known fact that long vacant and neglected buildings that are owned by those that are unable to or have chosen not to invest in them is a drag on the whole downtown. It's a very well-known fact in the economics of a downtown or any real estate development that if you have a bad property, it's going to downgrade the value of both properties on either side of the properties. It's like weed killing. And during the sessions that we worked with you on to define this action agenda, you made it extremely clear to us that you're very frustrated and you're fed up with this situation, basically. Therefore, we think you ought to take 5 specific steps immediately to address this problem. First of all, we think the town should adopt, just as many communities in Indiana have done, a vacant building code. And as the state, this is enabled to you by the state legislation. As I said, many towns and cities throughout this state have done this. It keeps the problematic properties from becoming public safety hazards. The owners of these problematic properties should be contacted and advised that the status quo regarding these structures is no longer going to be tolerated in this community. Property owners should be offered all the assistance possible that one could give through this program, whether it's rehab assistance or tenanting the buildings, we can help you find a building user. And those who choose not to reinvest in these properties should be offered assistance in marketing them for the sale to either rent or sell to productive owners. And if all else fails, the town then should enforce this vacant building code to its fullest extent, with fines that escalate annually in a very substantial manner. And the way other cities in this state, and the purpose of your state legislation that allows you to do this, is to induce those people to either act or get off a dime, but more particularly to put the property back in the market. Because again, the vacant properties that you've got in your downtown now that are all tenanted, they can all be tenanted, okay? There's no question about it. And we're told from the standpoint of tenanting that investors have been to this community and attempted to negotiate leases with the owners of the problematic properties, and they've been turned away. It's hard to believe that that would be the case, but it is. And we're also going to ask the town to examine the legal possibilities. And this is going to be a touchy one because of the recent history of the use of this particular approach to acquisition. But we're going to ask your legal counsel to advise your town on whether or not they can take the property through eminent domain, through condemnation. And it would only be as a good agent to pass it on to someone who would do a reasonable job investing. I know of no other way you're going to accomplish this because it seems as though at this point in time you've tried every other approach to getting those vacant properties back on the market. And there's no question in our mind, just from discussions we had here with people that have tried to negotiate deals on those, there's enough demand out there to where we think they're going to move pretty fast once they come back on the market. And that leads me to the next thing that is usually a very, very problematic thing for communities everywhere, and that is business recruitment. And in the overwhelming majority of downtown revitalization efforts, they're out here in Indiana and almost 1,000 cities we've represented around the country, they're downtowns throughout the nation. There's an extensive, in most cases, an extensive orchestrated effort is needed to go out and find business prospects to fill up spaces, in most cases dealing with just a plethora of vacant properties, bad properties. That's been the history of downtowns in this country. But you're unique in this respect, and we think it kind of goes along with the problematic properties I was talking about earlier, that in your case, it's felt that you have currently enough demand here to fill up the vacant space that you've got. So if you can put those properties back on the market, it's unlikely that you're going to have to go out and make an aggressive effort to find tenants for those buildings because you don't have a lot of vacant space down there today. And we think that it would be good to let the real estate community, the banking community, and development community, as well as government officials government officials just beyond this community to know what it is you're looking for and to let them know that you're open for business when we can get those back on the market. So that rather than embarking on some kind of expensive as well as a purposive effort to recruit appropriate new businesses for your downtown, we think that, again, in your case, if we can condition the space through the aesthetic that I mentioned to you, we can make it a funner place to be, reasons to come down here. If we can enhance not just the look, but continue to strengthen the existing businesses that we have, we don't think you're going to have to do a lot of business recruitment. We think it's going to take care of itself pretty much. And you can always, the fallback can always be, if they don't come, you can go seek them. That's what most communities, again, have to do. They have to go out in the field and prospect for prospective businesses. We think that a distinct niche, again, I'm going to bring you back to that pedestrian-oriented zone, but that's where we need to really spend a lot of time initially. Once that fills up, becomes as strong as it can be, then again, you're going to see that ripple effect likely occur to fill up the other vacant space that you might have outside of that pedestrian zone. We think the opportunities for you in the immediate future would be to work towards businesses that aren't necessarily daily need businesses or basic shopping businesses. There are plenty of other opportunities in this metropolitan area that can take care of the things that you've got to have. We think this downtown should be a place where we offer things that you want to have, specialized types of things that are unique, not found in any mall or any strip center or any other commercial district around you here. And we think we ought to do as much as we can to strengthen the existing businesses that are there today. But a few gaps that we see over time, things that you likely could do better with, again, based on our reading of the economics of this community, we think that these additional businesses could be appropriate for your downtown. Home accessories, decorating products, as well as interior design services to service this 101,000 population you have around the area, not only for product but design. Gifts and cards, coffee sandwich shop, at least one fine dining restaurant, casual and sports active apparel. I think a day spa would be a good addition to your downtown. Fine antiques, but just a very limited amount of them. Specialty foods for homes, such as gourmet foods, artisanal breads, cheeses, and so forth. And again, professional offices in the upper floors on Smith and on the side streets. You haven't even tipped the iceberg, as I see it, on office development here. if you get retail in order, it's going to bring more offices, and you get those two things in order, it's going to make it a much more attractive place to live. And that speaks to loft development. Another thing that we took a close look at here, in fact we were asked to do this, are your ordinances related to the controls in downtown. Now I mentioned one, and that's the vacant property ordinance that we think would be a good addition for you to have. But most of your commercial development now in your downtown is in what you call an HM zone. And it's intended to, and what the purpose of this HM zone is to promote a strong pedestrian-oriented downtown with limited institutional and service-oriented businesses and more two-story structures that are built up to the front property line. And again, this speaks primarily to that pedestrian zone, but it's one that you already had on the books, and its intent is perfect. But there are a couple of things we think you need to do in terms of just tweaking that to make it just a little bit more viable for permitted uses to operate within that area. And so what we suggest is within this zone that you amend it specifically to allow outdoor dining on private property and to allow outdoor dining on public sidewalks with town approval. Obviously, you can't barricade the sidewalks, and I've already mentioned it's not an appropriate place to put a lot of display of merchandise, but that's one thing that, again, you don't have to go far to find out some great communities in this state that offer outrageously good outdoor dining. So we think that should be added to the ordinance. Stated specifically in there, you probably could assume that that's appropriate today, but it doesn't say it. And we think you should specifically prohibit warehousing or storage of products in buildings unless the items are directly associated with the businesses in that building. I mean, if I'm a retail business and I sell shoes, I got to have some shoes in the back of my office, but there's no reason why I should have a building downtown and have it full of paint, building materials that have nothing to do with what that building does, and it's not offered to the public. Plus, it's a very dangerous, hazardous situation, so that needs to be explicitly clear. The ordinance, that area is not appropriate for those types of things. Now, there are areas that are appropriate for warehousing and storage, but the downtown is just too tiny, and the space is too valuable, and we need it for retail purposes if at all possible. It's also suggested that in the future, this won't affect anything that's there today, but in the future you limit the amount of auto sales and repair businesses that you permit in this H&M zone. Again, that conflicts with pedestrian movements. Those are appropriate uses in a community. That just doesn't happen to be the place that they're most appropriate. And housing, where it's appropriate and possible, the maximum number of upper floor quality loft apartments should be developed throughout this H&M zone. And existing housing, and again, I mentioned here on High Street, in Canal as well. We should do everything we can to rehab and maintain the quality housing that kind of acts as bookends for your downtown. Now, communication is going to be very important too as part of this process. You've got to brag about yourself at every turn. And while downtown's not quite ready yet to go out and put the big sign up that you're open for company, it's the time to start talking about the things that I'm talking about here tonight. If you do a facade program, then that's press, that's news. If you build that bike walk connector, connecting the two parks, that's big news. And anything as we see is not too small to talk about or brag about. And if you don't brag about yourself, likely no one else is going to. But we found in this state and throughout the nation, news media is extremely cooperative with projects like this if they're quality projects. And if you're sincere in what you're doing. So we think that you should work closely with your local media, but the new frontier that everyone's looking at relative to this type of thing is social media, as well as websites. So the town's website, the Chamber's website, Delaware County Chamber's website, Delaware County Economic Development Alliance should all have tidbits on their websites and then through whatever social media channels you use to let people know what's going on here. One of the things that's going to be good is when Pete puts this online, my presentation to you tonight, the whole document. That's something that, again, we should tell people that's there, and that's a positive step forward in terms of what you're doing. But again, remember, nothing's too small, and nothing is too small to warrant communication. Later steps, once you get up and running, get your bearing, get your balance, let's say, and you get the mix of buildings, you get the mix of uses in the downtown as they can be. You upgrade the appearance of downtown to the best of your ability. Then we think that it would be appropriate to take a look at and strategically place billboards that advertise downtown as a whole. Creating a page on the websites of the town as well as the chamber. I'm talking about websites for downtown, not just tidbits about downtown on their websites. You might want to create a specific website just for downtown. And you want to draw a drawing, and these efforts should be working towards drawing a bigger audience for downtown. People that are currently attending Muncie and YMCA functions, visiting the parks and trails, school events here, which you have a tremendous number of, the lodging facilities in the area, Ball State, anywhere where people congregate, that would be a good place to advertise what you're doing in downtown. That's going to be very important too. Projects like this don't just do themselves. It's going to take guidance, it's going to take leadership. And we were extremely impressed by the group of individuals that we were introduced to work with as a part of this project. It's called our process committee. I don't know how many process committee members are here tonight. I'm nearsighted, so I have a hard time seeing at the back. If you are a part of the process committee, would you raise your hand? And that's not quite half of the process committee members. You know all these people on these committees, on this committee. And they provided extremely valuable insightful information and were very upfront with us in terms of what needed to be done. And it's a dedicated group of people. So what we want to suggest that you do in order to oversee the implementation of this project is that you form a downtown partnership. It would be called the Yorktown Downtown Partnership. And what this job would be to oversee implementation of this enhancement effort, to provide a uniform voice for downtown, to act as an advocate for downtown, and as a group to resolve any issues that might arise which might impede downtown's further ability to be the best it can be. And the individuals specifically, we're going to give you a specific list, and I think virtually all of these were on the process committee. But the members of that partnership should include the council president, the clerk treasurer, the town manager, the park board president, chamber of commerce president, redevelopment commission president, school superintendent, Delaware County Chamber of Commerce exec, Mount Pleasant Township Historical Alliance president, a downtown business owner, at least one, probably more, downtown property owner, at least one, maybe more, and a downtown bank manager. And if at all possible, it's strongly recommended that this partnership be created as a permanent committee of the Yorktown Chamber of Commerce, rather than again trying to reinvent the wheel and need a place to be housed. And further, it's likely you're going to find the same thing that most communities do. And we don't always recommend that a staff person be dedicated to a project like this, but we really feel confident that once this, because of the integrity and the type of people that we're suggesting to be on this partnership, and knowing full well the kind of people that have already been on the process committee we've worked with, they all got jobs, they all got lives. This is not their only life, even if they own a business there in downtown. They can't dedicate a lot of their time to it other than a reasonable amount of time, let's put it that way. So you're going to need some kind of backup staff support. And we're going to strongly suggest to you that we use assign a current town employee. I won't mention her name tonight. You all know who I probably said you all know, but I'll let Pete deal with that one. But it's going to be someone that can, call meetings together, take care of the agenda, and do some of the things that are more practical for a staff person to do. But we don't think you ought to go out at this point in time and hire a specific person. We ought to use someone that's already in place. Beautiful thing about this project too, again, most of the time we have to scramble around for money in any community to make things work. You're fortunate though that you have a tax increment financing district here that's in place today. And based on what we saw, we think you're generating currently sufficient funds to pretty much finance the whole program I just suggested to you. But don't ever stop looking over your shoulder. Any federal money that might come down the pike, State of Indiana fund, I know these people right here, the Indiana Association of Cities and Towns, our partners for the last 13 years, are constantly out there beating the bush. Brian, as well as his boss, Matt Griller, was supposed to be here tonight. The reason he's not is he's down fighting for tax revenue for local communities that your legislature is trying to steal. And there's no way to make what they're looking at taking money away from, there's no way to make it up. So you're a part of the Indiana downtown community now, so take advantage of that, and knowing full well, as I know the Indiana Association of Cities and Towns, I know they're going to be out there bird dogging continuously for you trying to find money. But the way we look at fundraising is kind of the way that President George W. Bush's father, Daddy Bush, used to characterize fundraising. He said, you stroke them, you pluck them, and you thank them. And what that tells us is that anybody that stands to gain from a good downtown is fair game to ask for help. And in your case, that could be the county, Community foundations are great partners in projects like this. The Economic Development Alliance, town and county chambers, banks, industry, major employers here, and again, any party that stands to benefit, which is going to be virtually anyone that does business in this community, institutionally or privately, that can stand to gain from a better downtown is going to do so with this downtown as it gets better. We find industrialists tell us all the time that, you know, downtown is one of the first things they look at. I don't care how big or how small they are, how big or how small you are. That is a sign of integrity or lack thereof in a community. Whether you like it or not, that's a mirror, and it reflects you. I don't know you, and I come through an area like that, and it's dumb. And that's the impression I get of a community when I leave. And employers, large and small, look at areas like that for the same reason. They have a difficult time attracting and then retaining employees if they don't have something that's a symbol of quality in the community. So never forget that thought of anyone that stands to gain from better downtown is fair game to ask to help with it. We're going to give you, as a part of this too, a very specific listing of the things we think that are appropriate for the town to do, for the business and property owners to do, and for the downtown partnership to do. You'll see this in the very latter parts of the work when you get a copy of it. But we want to make sure that we give you as much guidance as we can at this point in time, and into the future as well, to not overtax anyone, but to make sure everyone does their part in the overall enhancement effort. The final thing that we're going to ask that you consider here, and I think this will be a very important step, is once you've had a chance time to go through this as a community, that we'd ask the town council to adopt this as the official guide for any further enhancement of downtown by reference, which would be, in essence, would be the downtown element of your comprehensive plan. And that way it would be official, and we'd also ask the partnership to follow this as their guide as well. And I'm going to leave with you tonight. I'm going to take questions after this, but I want to leave with you tonight the same promise that we make any community that we serve as a part of Indiana Downtown, or any community that we serve through our practices at High Palma. And that is that this is just the start of something, okay? This is not the end of anything. It's the end of all the writing and jawboning about it, but now it's time to get out there and do something about it. And I would tell you the same thing again, I would tell any of our clients that we're here to help you. You're ours now. We're never any further away, people. Phone call, Bob, phone call. IAC knows this, but we want to see you succeed with this. If it works for you, it works for us. If it doesn't work for you, it certainly doesn't work for us. But just remember that you've got a shoulder that you can lean on if you need. But there are other resources in this state as well. And my guess is, you know, politics being politics, and time being time, and economics being economics, but this state used to offer tremendous sums of money. I mean, I'm thinking of Aurora years ago, a former governor who's deceased now. They came in with like a $2 million, one of those big checks, you know, like blowing up checks for the newspaper to look at. And that used to be that was the rule, not the exception to the rule. A lot of funds that used to flow through the state from the federal government, and a lot of them still do, were funneled into downtowns. Today they're funneled into different things, but we think that time's going to change that as well. As more downtowns are successful here, we have a lot of tremendously successful downtowns in this state, but it's going to have to get the attention again of the economic development powers in this state to further induce, if you will, enhance, and contribute to the cause of downtown revitalization in Indiana, cities and towns. Thank you again for the opportunity to serve you. Thanks for coming out, and have a good evening.